Hello, everybody. This is Zeus Caravallo from ZK Research, and I'm here for week one of 2021. And I'm alongside my real-time recorded co-host here, Dave Michaels. Dave, Happy New Year.
Happy
We're
New
in
Year. Yes.
2021.
We seem to be off to a slow start this year. We don't have a lot of news for week one.
Yeah, well, CES is coming next week, and I think a lot of vendors did a pretty strong push towards the end of 2020. So I'm not surprised with that. It's probably a good thing too, with all the stuff that carried the news cycles this week that might have been lost. But I do think an interesting thing to talk about is let's look back at 2020 and some of the kind of cool hardware devices. You and I have talked about this before, that hardware endpoints certainly aren't going away. In fact, we should expect more from the vendors in the area of hardware looking ahead. And so let's take a look back at what we had. And the first one I wanted to talk about was the Avaya Vantage 3. I think this is kind of an interesting device. It's one that probably doesn't get as much notoriety as it should. It's a single pane of glass. You can almost think of it as a hybrid tablet and phone, right? So it looks like a tablet. It's a little thicker than a tablet. Yep. It's not really portable, but you can get a phone handset to it. You can use it for that. It kind of looks like a Facebook portal with some enterprise-grade security. I think Avaya has been positioning it as more of a centralized hub for work that you can use at home or use in the office. I like the device. It's a phone, but it's a different kind of phone, I suppose. It falls in that phone category, I think. But the thing I like about it is it creates a lot of interesting use cases. I've seen it used in some hotels for high-end experiences. I saw one case where Avaya, actually at GITEX last year, they had it on display, or the year before, I suppose now. They had it on display as almost a control hub for IoT devices. And so, when you've got a communications device that's got a tablet front end, it creates a lot of flexibility. So I know you're a pretty big fan of it too.
Well, they were one of the first ones with a Android-based, Android-inspired operating system on a smartphone, on a desk phone, and this is the third generation of it. So it's just gotten better and better. And now the industry's there's a lot of Android-based the video first devices on the market now. What I like particularly about the Vantage, though, I don't know if it's been released this way yet or not, but I know it's coming, is it's going to work with the Avaya Cloud Office offer with Ring Central. Yeah. And so from a Ring Central perspective, it's probably the highest end phone you can have on your desk. I think it's and that's pretty powerful. And your IoT play is that it's an Android device. You can load all kinds of apps on this thing. And something else that I think is really interesting, I called it a video first device, or I describe it as a video first device. But one thing I really like about it is Avaya has the option on the Vantage 3 of no camera. And it's not intuitive, no camera on a video first device. But for example, a hotel application is perfect. You put this in the hotel room, and when you call the front desk, you could have video, you can see who you're talking to, but they have no business seeing inside your hotel room. And then you can still have all the smart apps. You can, have the concierge and all these different apps on the phone. So I think, because I've been in hotel rooms that have tablets on the desk that have a camera, and I don't like that. They tell me the camera's not working, but I think you and I know enough about the way these things work that I don't really trust those cameras. And then the last point about that camera, if you get the one with the camera, is because it's kind of a portrait style device, the camera's up higher. And that's one of the things that really plagues a lot of these video first phones, is the camera is too low. So the Vantage 3 looks pretty interesting to me. So the Vantage is basically an appliance. It's a video first appliance. And if you think about it that way, there's actually a lot of different options right now emerging. On the high end, you've got like the Desk Hub, the Desk Pro from Cisco. And on the low end, you've probably got the D10Me from D10 for the Zoom environment. But I think this whole category of personal appliances, video first appliances, is going to absolutely explode. The video sector has always had focus on the desktop as a PC or laptop, and then as room systems. But post pandemic, when we get to post pandemic, I don't know when that'll be, but at some point, there seems to be a lot more focus around the appliance concept as a personal device. And I think we're going to see a lot of innovation around that. And one thing about this that I really like, particularly coming from a desktop perspective, is the wire management. The Desktop Pro, you've got your camera, you've got your speakers, You've got the actual, you got the microphone. You got all these things built into one wire, and from a desktop perspective, that's nice. I've always had so many wires on my desk. What do you think about this category, Zeus?
Yeah, I think in some ways it's recognition from the manufacturer that these systems, while they're easy to use, aren't always easy to use. You got to make sure you have a good camera. You got to make sure, I've seen people with things like this, Dave, like mics on the desk, and you've got external speakers and things like that. And while for most technically savvy people, you can create that experience, it's not the easiest thing to do. So, especially for executives and things, create an all-in-one device. You can control the audio quality better, right? I remember talking with Microsoft about this years ago, that one of the issues they had with people using their computers as phones is, especially when you get to the low-end computers, the PC manufacturer will do anything to save a nickel. So instead of putting a good quality mic in, they save a few bucks by putting a crappy mic in.
And camera.
And camera, and so it creates an entirely different experience. And so if you're doing sales calls and in fact, if you think of the world now where we're going to be working mostly from home, if you want to create a good impression, want to have good interactions, you can guarantee that with these pre-built devices. I think the other big thing that I've found that makes them useful is I can use it as a second monitor. So I don't have to have a second monitor, a video display, and my laptop, right? So I can have one device, have multiple of those functions. And so the price points of them have come down to the point where it's not on par with the second monitor. It's certainly cheaper than the Apple monitors, but outside of that, it's nominally priced over like a ViewSonic or something like that. So I might as well buy that. Then I get the luxury of that. More and more AI capabilities are being built into that, right? So, when we do this with you, we can see the camera pan up and down and things like that because you're on one of these devices, and with the microphone arrays and things like that, they're a class of device that's so much better today than they even were just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think the camera. I mentioned that just while you were talking, but if you buy a high-end USB webcam, it's a couple hundred about. The typical webcam on Amazon is around $50, but the camera in your laptop is probably about $3. And considering we're in a video first world at this point, it's just no excuse. You got to go up the camera quality.
Yeah. The only way to get away from that is buying like a $6,000 MacBook Pro or something like that, and then then you're sort of at the greater price point than you would have had if you bought the device, right? So.
Yeah.
Another category that we've talked about off and on for years actually is boards, right? And we've seen the rise and fall of boards come and go, and historically they just haven't been really easy to use, right? There's different ways to digitize a board, and most vendors have come out with digital boards that you can see one behind me, right? So that you can write on. You typically require special pens. Some work better than others. They're pretty expensive. Personally, I like the Captivo model where you put a camera over a traditional whiteboard and I can deploy that anywhere. But this is one where I do think that there is a need for it, especially again in this world where we're all kind of working in a hybrid model, that I want to be able to share content with people that I'm working with. The ability to make these things not only easy to use, but also it's sort of, I don't need to have specialized equipment, I think is something the industry still lacks. But I do expect to see, we did see a little bit of innovation last year. Captiva got acquired, but I would expect to see moving ahead into 2021, we'll see more innovation here.
Yeah, the whiteboard is really the last analog device in the conference room. It's the last thing to go. And I think Cisco was one of the first to come out with one. It was the Spark board when it was introduced. Yep. Now it's the WebEx board. And I really thought that was going to take off. I really thought, okay, the whiteboard is now going to go digital. I think that all-in-one concept has some flaws. I mean, the problem is the camera's right there, you're drawing on it. It's a little too much. And then Cisco later introduced the companion mode. Microsoft's done something very similar to that with their hub system. And that companion mode basically makes it just a whiteboard. It uses the cameras and room system of the rest of the room. Your point about like the Captivo and the boards behind us, I've got the smart board. I'm not sure what you have there, but that uses
it's a smart board,
and you can send out a PDF. And I think that that's got some advantages. The new model that I think is really interesting is forget the board and go with software only. Microsoft was kind of the first to really embrace this with, because they started on the hub and then they came out with a whiteboard app that they said would be better to use. The nice thing about using an app is that it's portable across all your different meeting systems. So if you're in a Cisco room system or WebEx meeting, and then you go to a team system, you can bring your drawings and stuff with you. And now we're seeing some real innovation in this area with applications like Mural and Miro, and there's a couple others I can't think of right now, but it'll be interesting to see how this board space plays out, the last analog device.
Yeah, I think the company that really cracked the code on digital paper, though, was remarkable. I know you've got one of these things, right?
Yep.
Where it kind of writes like paper. I guess what we don't have is a digital board that kind of writes like a whiteboard. And you know, like we both talked about Captivo. Well, that's a traditional whiteboard. That would be like me taking a camera and putting it on top of my notebook, right, and trying to capture it that way. Where I think Remarkable did a good job of doing that on a kind of personal level. I'd certainly like to see that at the board level. So maybe we'll see a Remarkable board this year. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm a big Remarkable fan, and I know you use yours. I'm not as excited about the Remarkable 2 as I was about the Remarkable 1. I think they got a few things wrong on that, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
So another section, you know, so far we've been looking back at the 2020 hardware, but looking forward into 2021 hardware, I think one of the most interesting categories that's going to be emerging this year is room panels. Room panels have always been kind of specialized. High-end video rooms have an LCD panel outside the room. You can see who's booked it. You could book it through the panel, et cetera. They're typically some sort of touch device. But this year, basically this quarter, we've got a bunch of announcements. You've got the Cisco Navigator. You've got the last year launched the NeatPad, which is getting momentum. You've got Crestron just came out with their new hardware, and they offer that both with their software and with Microsoft Teams software. So all of a sudden, you've got 4 choices for rooms. And the thing that's really interesting about this category is that they're appropriate for any shared room. Don't even think about it as a video room. It works best with a video room because it pairs the equipment and all that stuff. But you know, if you think about the way we're talking about returning to the office, there's going to be a much stronger demand for room panels for shared spaces. It's going to be a much stronger demand for shared spaces than there used to be, and there's going to be more choices than there used to be, and I think we're going to see this category explode.
Yeah, it's in some ways the value prop isn't a whole lot different than what you were saying about the in-room devices, right? Where you think from a cable management perspective and hooking this stuff up, there is a level of complexity that it makes it prohibitive for a lot of companies. What these room boards do is they just sort of simplify the deployment. I put one of these things in, I usually have 1 cable or 2 cables to attach to it, and now I've got control over my room. And the more kind of IoT'd, I guess, room systems get, like you talked about the return to work, companies are putting in, you know, temperature sensors, sensors to sense how many people are in there, you know, to tell if things are sanitized, right? So you're going to want to control all that from the board. So now you got a single place to look. And as we converge all these different kind of networks and, you know, environmental systems together, it actually drives the need for it. So I think in some ways, I think those room panels were a bit of a solution looking for a problem. But I think the return to work and the safe workplace is that problem that these things have been trying to address. You know, it gives them a problem to solve.